Hello, America. Hello, world.
Morning.
An awakening squad coming to you from all around the country. We got Hawaii, Illinois. We've got Florida. We got Boston. We got Vermont. We are ready to roll today. It's going to be a good day on the show. I'm so excited. And to kick us off, as always, Josh Jacob. Give it to us, buddy.
Sweet. Thank you very much for your time. I feel like singing some Mute Mat. And so this is a song that I heard off of their concert album. And yeah, I like it. The song's called The Fight. Phones weight on my confidence. The years have stolen my innocence. It's hard to pay the price for this. Tonight could be the last to spend. Just see me through the night. Just see me through the fight. Somehow, oh, looking for ways to hide from the walls between every voice inside. I'm caught, I can't describe, so I wait just for you tonight. Oh, yeah. Just see me through the night. Just see me through the fight. Somehow. Maybe hope will buy us another day. And time will fix what I can't erase. But feels a million miles away. And I don't think I'll get there anyway. Can you change my thoughts around? And I pray you'll stay for now. Can you say what's breaking down? Just see me through the fight. Somehow, just see me through the night. Just see me through the fight. Somehow, oh, just see me through the night. You see me through the fight. Somehow, oh, yeah. Ooh. Just see me through the night. You see me through the fight. Somehow.
Hey, boy, let's go.
That's good. Kicking it off with a little bad boy action there from Josh, and we're going to bring a little bad boy action later. Right, Marissa? Am I right?
That's right. You're right, JK.
We got a big day because just to give away something early. Well, not to give away one thing. Joy Beth Smith with us from Christianity Today. Hooray! Hooray! And I understand it's 93 where she is, and she's feeling a little warm, and so she got a fresh look. Those of you on the podcast won't be able to see that really, really fresh look she's got. Marissa, who do you say it's like?
She's giving off very big Frida Kahlo vibes today.
Yeah.
I'm loving the like smoky dark red top with the bun. It's creativity run amok.
For the podcast listeners, I also did just tweeze my eyebrows 2 days ago. So I just want to set the record straight.
That's right. That's right. Not to be confused with any sort of brow issue.
Yes.
That's right.
Great. There you go.
Alyssa always says stuff like that too. Whenever she gets her hair done or does something, she's always like, "We need to make a video today. We are not waiting. We're not doing any of our YouTube videos 2 weeks from now. We are doing it today."
I am so ready.
Yep.
Game face on. I'm ready to roll.
Yep.
All right. Speaking of game face and ready. I forgot to talk about the other big thing is happening because we have technical difficulties. We're not able to bring you the movie clip of the day. So we're going to do a reenactment of it led by Marissa Prince.
That's right. My thespian self is coming to
Hamilton inspired live theater.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Theater in the round or theater in the Zoom or something like that. But bringing the inspiration first will be Joel Searby from Florida in the Daily Dose.
All right. Hey, everybody. So speaking of stories and great stories and acting, there's this truth that I believe that we are all living out of a certain storyline, that there is, if you will, a through line of all of our lives, a narrative. And we may not always realize it, but we're deeply influenced by these narratives that we subscribe to. Another way to think about this might be to say, what do I believe is happening in the world? How do I interpret everything that's going on in the world, in my life? And, if we allow any kind of media to be the primary narrative for our lives, it's going to be a pretty bleak, dark, awful, angry, divided kind of a narrative, whether that's social media, mainstream media. While there's certainly some truth threaded through there, there's a whole bunch of things that any single media narrative misses. And so there's a way that we as people of faith are to believe in the much larger truths, the way that we piece our story together and understand our story and the direction that we believe the world is heading really matters a lot. Now, I believe that there is a God, that there is an author to our story and to the story of all of time and history and people. And so when we think about that, I think it's critical that as Jesus taught us, if we believe in Jesus, we follow Jesus, that there is something about if we build our house on a narrative that is something other than God's narrative, it's like building that house on sand. And that house is going to tumble when tough times come. But if we build our house on God's truth, on his truth, it's like building our house on a rock where when the tough times come, we know the narrative, we know the story, we know the end of the story, and it allows us to endure the really hard times. Now, I know that we live in a moment where like postmodernism, postmodernism, modernism, all these kinds of philosophical traditions are kind of colliding. And whose truth? My truth. Let me speak my truth. Is there truth? I'm just here declaring from my perspective and what all of historical Christianity would say is that there is truth. There is an author to this story. That author is God, and his story is one of redemption and love and bringing us together. The long arc of redemption that is God's story will allow us to see that he is making all things new, and we can find hope to endure the tough times when we understand that God is the author of our story. So that's your daily dose for the day. Back to you guys.
Yeah, that is something to wrestle with and to live into. I read your piece first this morning, Joel. As is usual on the best days of my life, I get three doses of Joel Searby. I had the reading version of him this morning. I had the 10 o'clock prayer version of him, which did a different teaching. And we had preacher teacher on the 10 o'clock devotional with Joel. And now, and I've been thinking about that. Yeah, just that the idea of like what storyline are we actually looking for? I mean, so what's the through line for everything? And yeah, I'm guilty as charged of following whatever somebody's telling me it is out there in the moment. So I appreciate you bringing it up and I wonder whether I will, there'll come a moment where I'm able to consistently live into the right narrative rather than sort of come in and come out of it. But Any hope for that, Joel?
Well, I mean, that's part of the challenge, but that's why we're doing this together, right? That's why this isn't just the John Kingston or the Marissa Prince show. This is the us show, because all of us, God's narrative isn't just threaded through our lives through scripture, though I believe it is. And it's not just threaded through our lives through like our own personal faith, but part of how he threads this narrative is through us, right? He tells the story through us, and we need to tell it back to each other. So that's where I find the hope, John. It's like, because there's days I don't believe it. I believe a whole different narrative about myself, about the world, about politics, about all kinds of stuff. And I need somebody else who's got faith, like Marissa, who does a great job of that with me. Like, hey, freedom. Hey, God's love. Hey, purpose. And we tell that story to each other.
Right. Yeah, I that's very well said. We do live in community. We do, we're meant to live in community. And a lot of times, as we tell each other back and forth over and over again, but we still need to be reminded, a lot of time God's love is only obvious to us through the other person. Like, I've lost the thread of the narrative. I've lost the through line. And then Marissa tells me what it is, or my wife tells me what it is, or whatever. Somebody says, "Oh, John, you're looking at the wrong storyline. The real storyline is happening here." I'm like, "Oh yeah, let me, remember that for the next 15 minutes before I forget it again."
That's right.
So.
I think we really are the best parts, like the heart of each other's storylines. I really do. I mean, I think like we often think like, I'm my storyline, what I do, my choices, whatever. But like, I mean, the richest parts, like the best parts of every movie aren't like, that's why I didn't like Castaway. Sorry, Tom Hanks. But like, the best parts of every movie are the interactions, the playing off, the encouraging, the doing life together.
Wow. I don't have to follow you down the Castaway point, in order to acknowledge the transcendence of that wisdom. No, that bit about say that again. You said, say the line again about the where each the
best parts of each other's narrative. Yeah.
Story, like, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, human connection, and that's such a good point. Castaway is a phenomenal movie, but you're right. It's just the guy in a volleyball the whole movie, and then like, oh yeah, and your wife just moved on.
I'm telling you, like, I'm
terrible
sorry.
part of that movie.
Like, no one's going to tell me that a plastic soccer ball should be anybody's co-star. It just, I don't care what you draw on it. It isn't a co-star. I'm not going to co-sign on that.
I am not.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna. I don't want to fight with you today, Melissa. So I'm going to let you be. I mean, I understand what you're saying. There's some merit to it. All right, I'm leaving it alone. Jeff Bethke, bring it to us from Maui, friend.
Yeah, something to chew on. That was the thought of the day, though. It's all downhill from here after totally saying that Castaway is, not that good of a movie in regards to human connection and stuff like that, which I agree, by the way. So great points, Marissa. Something to chew on. Thinking and reading this morning and last night, and I had something to share, but then there's another thing, came up that I want to share that I was thinking about this morning. So maybe I'll save the other one for later, because it's not like we don't do this show 3 times a week. So, got a Rolodex of thoughts that I'm just trying to chew on myself. But something to chew on. Psalm 119. I was reading Psalm 119 this morning, and there was a little phrase that just caught my eye that I wanted to chat about it, specifically in this season, whether it's the conversation around race, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's just the anxiety and pressure that everyone's feeling. And essentially, there's a couple different translations. I read out of the ESV. So the first time I saw it, it said, Psalm 119, verse 24, "Your testimonies are my delight, and they are also my counselors." And I just love that. And I was thinking about that this morning. Another translation says, instead of testimonies, you can say decrees, you can say laws, you can say statutes. So God's decrees, God's law, God's instruction, God's testimony was David's delight. And then they were also his counselors. And I just love that phrase, because I posed back a question to myself that I want to pose to you. And that is, who are your counselors? Because at the end of the day, we all have counselors. We all are listening to someone or something. Most of us, our counselors are not for some reason, Siri disagreed with me right there. I don't know if you heard that. Or she's disagreeing with me. She goes, "Hold on, that's not my instructions." See, she's actually jumping in at that moment, because that is our counselors. Are usually Siri, are usually our phone, are usually technology, right? They're not the vision that God has for humanity, the vision God has for human flourishing, His Torah, His instruction, His ways, His decrees. That's not our counselors. That's not what we listen to. A lot of us listen to people we shouldn't be listening to. We listen to, and our counselors are the news feed, the anxiety-ridden, fast-paced information that we talked about a little bit in the American Awakening and Focus, I think, last week. So that's something to chew on for today. That's a question: is who are your counselors? And if it's outside of God's law and statutes, it might not be a good one. It might not lead to human flourishing or blessing, because as we know, Psalm 119 is this huge reflection on the Torah, which a lot of us, we think of that that means just law, but it really just means instruction, God's vision for his image bearers, that we then see reach its climax in Jesus as the true image bearer who gives us that example. But man, if we aren't listening to God's way of how we should work and how things are lined up to work, then it won't go well for us. And I think a lot of us are seeing that right now with what we are listening to and the bad counselors that we are going to for advice. So something to chew on, but hopefully that's a little nugget for you guys. Back to you guys.
Well, there's a lot of connective tissue, obviously, between that point and what Marissa was just saying, and Joel, sort of
the Spirit knew,
right? Boom, boom. I said, so you're right. I mean, who are the truth tellers? I mean, there's so many ways to not be listening to the truth. It's so easy, right? It is so easy. It's in our natures. It's in all the inputs we get, and figuring out who can actually keep our heads screwed on straight. That's a big deal.
And I think there's something to be said for, there are lots of decisions that we make where we feel like we go and we find the reliable source that we can talk to and get guidance from. But on the day-to-day basis, there's so much that's affecting our worldview that we don't even understand. Like subconsciously, we're just getting all of this, whether it's from reality TV or the radio or people and chit chat and all of that. And I feel like those things shape our view of ourselves and of God and of each other just as much as those big decision moments. But I'm much less discerning about those like subtle inputs than I am about the big decision moments, and I shouldn't be.
That's a good point. And they form us just as much, if not more, because we don't really have any type of guard up around the little moments. Yeah, that's a good point.
So say that again, if you could, Joy Beth. I think I'm tracking you, but so. Are you talking about like sort of in the quiet moments when you're just like not really facing something exactly? And how are you sorting inputs then? Go say more, please.
Yeah. So for instance, if I'm like on
say more, please. I'm going to use that line every day. Say more, please.
If I'm on like date 4 with a guy, and I know all of my examples have to do with dating, but bear with me.
That's amazing.
Now it's a show. It's a show.
Okay, today solidified the pattern where now you cannot bring an anecdote or any wisdom that does not relate directly to a dating example.
That's all I got, guys. That's all I have.
That's all I got.
So
you're on date 4.
I'm on date 4. And maybe there are like a couple of red flags or yellow flags even where I'm just not sure as to like if I should pursue this or not. So that's obviously when I go to like the people that I trust, people who are in solid marriages, people who've dated a lot, people who I feel like they know me really well. And I bring those issues to them. We talk it out. It's good to go. And then there's a date 5. But if there are like other instances where it's not so clear cut that you should be seeking advice, maybe I'm actually just like ruminating about a lot of anxiety about work. And so I distract myself with Netflix, or I just call and have like a chit chat conversation with my dad, but we're not actually dealing with like a thing. I'm just getting input into something as my mind is like churning over and over and over again. And I feel like in those moments, I have to be really careful because I'm much more likely to try and distract myself with something like almost like immediately pleasurable in some way, like the Netflix distraction or a music distraction or go for a run. And those things are great, but they're also not helping me form my worldview in a healthy way. They're not helping me reach an answer. If anything, they're just kind of like muddling my mind.
That's good. That's helpful.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it sounds like you're saying that, just that when we think of counselors, we think of the place we go when we're terribly struggling or need some huge advice or whatever, when counselors are just really any input. So like every second is a counselor, by the way we're talking about it. And we have to be just as weary of that as of the big ones. Yeah.
That's a way better way to say it. Yeah.
I tried. I need to think of a dating example though to drive it home.
Next time.
I'll tell you right now, though, Joy Beth, if you're on the 4th date and you're getting red flags, run, girl, run. Run.
She clarified the yellow. She clarified to yellow, if that's fair.
Yeah.
You know, I think everyone has a yellow flag, right? You know, you married. Alyssa married 10 yellow flags. You know what I mean?
Ooh,
So,
the grace of God.
you know,
That's true.
you
Listen
just
to the
don't want it
guys.
to be a red flag. I would agree with that.
The guys are like,
you have to discern the difference. You got to discern the difference.
We should do that as a podcast episode. I want to
Right?
listen.
Exactly. I like that.
I literally wore yellow shoes when my wife started dating me. And
Well,
they
there you go.
she was like, I don't know about the yellow shoe guy, but you know
Yellow-
what?
The yellow shoes were a red flag. That's what they were.
Hey, we're 17 years in, man. Come on.
Wait. Hold on here. What kind of yellow shoes were they? Apple shoes?
What is it, like
They
Timberland?
they were like early Crocs. They were like gardening
Oh.
shoes because I was like,
That's a black flag. That's
What is wrong with you, man?
What's past red? What's past red?
Yellow
Early-
Crocs?
Crocs.
Where'd y'all go?
no, I got them at like a garden store because I was like big into gardening and everything. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but like,
Joel, I
There's no
admire
better
that,
picture of
man.
unconditional love right there. That
You
is
a confident man.
covenantal. Yes, covenantal love.
It's funny how these through lines of our stories, you know, the funny ones come to bear. Because how many sort of gardening stories does Joel tell us? How many farming stories does Joel tell us? And it was, you know, and then it was emerging in his early gen yellow crockish gardening shoes. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, what's like the biggest shoe right now? You know, for leisure wear, it's the Crocs. So clearly, I was way ahead on that trend.
Not anymore, dude. I mean, Crocs were like what, 10 years ago?
Oh, you guys live in the
Really?
north. I forgot y'all northern elitists don't. You guys are you're like 18 trends ahead of us back here in the south.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it was a Croc moment, but it's past.
It is.
Wow, this is
Not to get into the weeds, but I would say yes and no. I would say the moment was only about a year or two ago because there was even an article written on it and a podcast I listened to where even someone like Post Malone was wearing them on stage like a year ago, you know? So
Thank you, Joe.
I know. They came back, then they kind of went into this weird, you know, anti-subversive culture. But, you know, don't get me into all the culture, you know, critique.
I think it's fair to say that if Post Malone's doing it, it's not clear whether it's in or out.
That's a fair assessment. That's true.
I mean, like, I don't think tattoos on the face are like in just because.
Exactly.
I don't think.
Or they've never gone out. They've
You know
never
what?
gone out.
there is actually scriptural reference for tattooing things upon yourself in order to remember them, JK.
I'm not saying against Post Malone on the subject. I'm just saying it's not fully clear that that's an obvious in trend. Nor is his lack of hygiene and the fact he doesn't wash it all. I mean, so I'm just saying these are.
No, I have no comment on that.
Okay, well, I'm just bringing facts. I'm just bringing facts.
We are so off the rails. Somebody save us.
So I can save us because
And close us out, Josh, with a song.
I can save us because we now our engineer is working overtime and we now have a Frida Kahlo picture to bring up. Come on, flash that.
Woo! Right next to Joy Beth. Joy Beth.
I was wondering when you made that reference. I didn't know who that is, but now I know who that is. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a classic. That's a classic.
It's
image.
a classic. That's cool.
Evoking.
And so she's working so overtime that we've also got the Castaway volleyball.
Wow.
Wilson. Look at that.
No. Bye-bye, Wilson. Not today, Wilson.
I wonder how much he got paid for that movie. He's part of the Screen Actors Guild.
Way too much. Way too much. That's how much he got paid.
Marina Pappas, you disappointed us by never coming on the show on Monday, and but we forgive you because you work so overtime for us.
Sure.
You bring us these special nuggets like Wilson and Frida, real time. Thanks so much.
That's true.
And people on the podcast, you're at home, so just look them up on your computer screen. You can do it on your own. So I'm sorry you can't watch it, but they were glorious pictures.
No one uses
Exactly.
computers anymore, John.
I was
Come on.
just gonna say that. Who's gonna look up something on their computer screen? I haven't looked up something on my computer screen forever. Especially if I'm listening to a podcast. I'm not listening to a podcast on the computer. Listen on my phone. So then I got to put my phone down, go to the computer, and look up these people. Think about the time there.
You're right. I don't even own a computer. What am I talking about? You know. A screen. Look it up on a screen that's attached to the Google machine. Okay.
Google machine.
So Calvin, Mr. One America shirt, coming off our One America off. We had a great time with a One America and the crew. What's happening out there, friend?
Man, I'm gonna start. Joel, don't you listen to anyone here, brother. You're married. You rock those yellow shoes because
Thank you,
you can.
Colin.
Yeah,
I
I got you, man. I'll stick up for my friend. All right, so here's what's going on in the world. We got the U.S. saw a record number of 60,021 new coronavirus cases Tuesday. And across the nation, 35 states are seeing growing numbers of new cases from last week. While the COVID-19 mortality rate may be on the decline, the nearly 3 million cases and the ICUs at capacity show the U.S. is still in the grips of the pandemic with no signs of slowing down. Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego said, we need medical professionals, we need testing kits, we need supplies immediately. Our hospitals are already in dire straits. They tell us in the next 2 weeks, it is going to get to an unbearable level of crisis. Also on Tuesday, President Trump, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, and other senior White House officials pressed governors and mayors to physically reopen all schools in the fall. The president and administration argued that the social, psychological, and educational costs of keeping students at home any longer would be worse than the virus itself. Trump said, and I quote, "The moms want it, the dads want it, the kids want it, so it's time to do it." However, states and localities are struggling to restructure academic settings, staff, and programs that weren't built to keep students 6 feet apart or cope with the requirements of combating coronavirus. In a conference call with governors, DeVos criticized school administrations that have done what she said next to nothing to educate students during the pandemic, and also criticized specific school districts for, as she said, playing both paradigms and planning a hybrid of in-person and online classes for the fall. And lastly, top-ranked universities on Tuesday condemned the announcement by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, aka ICE, that international students will have to leave the country or transfer if their colleges opt to have only online classes in the fall. Schools including Harvard, UPenn, and Columbia sought to reassure international students following the announcement, with Harvard and UPenn both saying that they would work with other institutions to chart a path forward to ensure students can continue their studies without fear being forced to leave the country midway through the year. The Association of American Universities released a statement which read, "This policy change would also have negative economic impacts because international students spend millions of dollars in our communities every year. It is also likely to do further damage to our nation's universities, which are already struggling with unprecedented uncertainty, massive logistical complications, and significant financial losses due to an ongoing COVID-19 pandemic." According to CNBC, over 1 million international students in the U.S. contributed $41 billion to the economy in the 2018 to 2019 academic year. So there you have it. That's what's going on out in the world. And over to our next segment. Over to you, Joy Beth.
Yay! CT is back this week with another poll and floating with this theme of community, which we didn't know was going to tie together so well. But I was kind of playing off of that as I created this question. And the question actually feels really applicable to me personally. So I have a lot of thoughts on it. And I was glad to see that a lot of other people had thoughts on it too. So we asked our readers, for those who've been working remotely, do you need physical presence with coworkers to feel stability in your role and relationships? So does that lack of physical presence make you feel less stable in your role and relationships? That's the same question. And 43% said, I feel stable regardless, which I think is really great. Like there are lots of hard things right now. And for people to not have to worry about that is awesome. 9% said that their relationships improved. I would love to talk to those people. 42% said that they need that in-person time, and that maybe their relationships or their sense of stability and community have suffered as a result. So we've some really interesting quotes this week. Mandy Fowler writes, "My work relationships have suffered. I never realized how much I depended on feedback and decisions coming from the quick hallway conversations that are so frequent in person. Without the regular personal connections, there's been more miscommunication and misunderstandings." And I mean, floating on that same idea, Jenna wrote in that she thinks communication and community are more intentional now. Whereas before, it was just assumed that people felt included and were part of the team and that people heard things by proximity. Now everything has to be planned, and you can't make those assumptions. And then this is one that this was a comment that was written in that I really resonate with. I've been a remote worker for years, so very little changed for me at the start. But now the extended period with limited in-person interaction, because this person also lives alone, is wearing on me. I'm lonely and weary. And so, especially as a single woman who, for the majority of quarantine, lived alone, I didn't have a roommate. So for months, I would be by myself and I didn't have that in-person interaction. I feel like that isolation, while I feel stable in my job, it's almost like the lack of that in-person communication has also, it's really hampered me, and it's hampered like my thriving, which I hate. So my question for you guys is, how will the shifting job market affect our sense of stability and community, both for those immediately impacted by unemployment and for those whose positions have changed in recent months, whether they've gone remote or whatever? So how does all of this affect our sense of stability and community?
Great question.
Joel unmuted just to say great question and then muted. Yeah.
Well, I really like the comment there about all the little small conversations that happen, the unplanned ones. Of course, it may, the flip side is you got to be intentional, which is great. But so much of life, and the spice of life, as well as the spice of like professional creativity, right, happens in those moments where you just kind of like rubbing shoulders. And so it's like you lose a piece of relational capital and you lose, I think, creative capital when you're not having that in-person interaction, unless you're literally like sitting like we are now online all day long with each other. Yep. You just don't have those little moments where you're like, oh, I just thought of something. And then you run to the corner, and talk to somebody. So I think that's
a good point. Well, yeah, it reminds me of, what is it? Pixar's headquarters that was specifically built to foster connection that didn't mean anything or was for no purpose at some level, right? Where the lobby's enormous and that kind of you have to get from here to here. You have to walk by people for exactly that reason, to create, almost like push people into those moments where it's small micro bits. But I think on top of that, what I always like to think of is, the internet at its core, which is not bad, but this is just like its platform, is transactional and efficiency based, right? It's meant to, you get on to get something. You're not, most people don't get on to like go serve someone or go, it's like you get on to take something, to read something, to engage with something, to consume with something. But we started to but if you're on there so much, you start consuming each other, right? You start consuming yourself. So I think, there's something about that's what we've lost, because the real life has too many moments that are not for efficiency's sake. They're not for, consumption's sake. It's just life, so you're going to have all those moments where you rub up against each other and stuff. So yeah, I don't know, but I think that's the downside of the internet, is that, that's all we're getting right now is transactional, kind of commodified, efficient moments, with exceptions, but that really hurts human relationship.
Well, you don't get, I mean, this is what, I will say for the 1,000th time, that's one of the reasons I love the show and being with you guys in the setting, is because I do not like Zoom. I mean, my coworkers know that I will go conference call over Zoom, 9 out of 10 times, just because it just it seems like to put an artificial pressure on an interaction, which is unnecessary to me. I mean, I'm not against it. Everybody who likes it, God bless you. Go Zoom, all that sort of thing. But
that reminded me of the Xenon song. Anyone else? Did I just give away my generation right there? Am I the only one? Remember that? Zoom, zoom, zoom. Make your heart go boom, boom, boom. Supernova Girl. Josh, yes, and Marina, thank you. That was a classic Disney movie, but that was a very specific age niche right there,
Well, so I'm going to give away my generation, which is that there was a PBS show called Zoom. And the early
I had no idea about that.
70s, and it was like, and so someone went something like Zoom, 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 zoom. I don't know. It went on like that.
That doesn't even hold a candle to Xenon. I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's your version of the Xenon show.
Exactly.
It was quintessential, like life-giving PBS. It was as good as
PBS is good.
What's that?
Marina's cross-generational. She said she knows both.
There you go. I see. That's why our engineer is so strong. She brings it all the way through. Anyway, so Zoom away if you want to Zoom. For me, it's a conference call thing because I just like it much more. But when we're in this space here, and it feels very intentional, very personal when I'm with you guys here, then you get to pick up moments like the freedom moment, right? I mean, like we didn't get on the air to comment on and go down the trail of talking about Joy Beth's hair and how cool it is, but all of a sudden you are, right? And so it's the spontaneous, the seemingly inconsequential, but it lifts your spirit somehow, right? I mean, it does something. It picks up a part of yourself that you're not intentionally trying to go to and get on the. Nobody thought we were going to get on the air today and like talk about particular types of film figures, right? Whatever. But then we did, and it was fun and whatever. So.
And I want to stress that word that. Sorry, Marissa. Do you want to go?
No, go, Calvin,
Please.
go.
Okay. No. All right. But yeah, that word intentionality seems to be something that we should focus on. I think, and especially to answer your question, Joy Beth, of how to recover the sense of stability and community in the shifting job market. Right. I think community, and especially actually community so far, it seems like something you do have to focus on and make time and room for. It is no longer something where, well, Jeff, you probably know the stats was like 80% of your day, the hours are spent in the office. So it's no longer you have that, you can't go in expecting, that you are going to engage with people. I think that was a luxury or a privilege that now I think many folks no longer have. So I think it is something that I think more energy, more intentionality has to go into being like, I want the community element because I'm now feeling its absence, that you have to make the effort to go find it and create it.
It's actually interesting to me that that people are so we're recognizing a lot now that we didn't before. But I mean, for a whole bunch of us, the workplace was a place that you did work, but then when you were getting the sense that your time was out, you were searching for new jobs while you were there. And there are people who sort of are routinely moving around pretty regularly, and that's their sort of, regular MO. Almost nobody's staying any place for, 10 years anymore, 5, 7, 10 years. That's outside of what a lot of people do. But it's interesting that even in that framework, I guess what I'm focused on more is it that we're lacking stability in so many other places that even in this place where we might not necessarily look to it for stability, because it's absent everywhere else, now we're grabbing onto it in the workplace. I mean, I don't know. It seems like we're like the day is over for people who are career workers in one place, where you're watching your coworkers' kids grow up. That almost never happens. But is it just that we're so bereft of stability in other places that now we won't talk about it on the job?
That's good. I think it is, Marissa. I mean, I think a lot of us. And I wouldn't really put myself in this category, but I know a lot of folks who just don't have a lot of deep relationships, period. And at least at work, they were getting some version of a real-ish relationship. And if you don't have it anywhere else, then you're going to put a lot of stock in there. And then I think there's also there's a deep desire to be known in all of us. I believe that. And when you're physically at work with a bunch of people, it's really hard to hide certain emotions all the time. I mean, people try, but then it's even if you don't want someone to know that you're having a really bad day, they're going to see it. And there's something actually really healthy about that, as opposed to oh, I don't feel good, I'm not getting on Zoom, or I'm only going to get audio in today, and nobody's going to see my drooping face and realize I'm depressed. I can just kind of fake it way easier when there's no in-person presence. So.
Was that a word against me, Joel? On
it was autobiographical, Jeff.
Okay.
I think the whole droopy face thing was what sort of sent it over, Joel. I think maybe we could have done without the droop. I know. But,
yeah. But no, I mean, you're well. This goes to that point, which I've been thinking about a ton lately. In a chapter in the book is about living life together in person rather than being remote, right? So, so I've thought about it a lot since we wrote the chapter, and there's just a lot of good science on that. We've talked about that here, and the whole oxytocin thing, the whole you know, you look into the eyes of either, you know, another living being. It can, I mean, you know, it can be animals sometimes, right? It's not, humans are the highest form of this, but you look into their eyes and life is reflected back, and there is a different, you know, affect you have. And of course, with human beings, with whom, especially with somebody you're close, you know, that sort of eye to eye exchange is actually, triggering, you know, a chemical reaction inside you, which is a favorable one, because there's a magic to that. We're made for that. And there's no way you can accomplish that, you know, on an audio conference, on a Zoom call, however intentional you are, and especially ones that come up in sort of the spontaneous spaces. You know, it's just really, really, really hard. There's a certain something to that which is not recreatable in any other way. Like, legitimately, you cannot recreate that. Now, it doesn't mean that these other things aren't great proxies for it, but there are no great proxies for it, and there's ways you can fill it in. But anyway.
Does that mean to say, and I'm going to cycle back to you and your jam joy, Beth, that like those people that are like dating now on Zoom during Corona, is it like, you know, don't get taken in by what you think you're seeing on the Zoom? You got to wait for real life.
I think that those people who are making the choice to be safe and to have Zoom dates, I think that's absolutely the advice I would give them. And I would not advise going on dates right now, because I have, and that is a risk of exposure. And then the date doesn't go well, and you're like, all I got out of this was pancakes and a risk for coronavirus. So I would highly recommend a Zoom date, but I would take it with a grain of salt and make yourself pancakes.
Make yourself the pancakes. I love it. Make yourself the pancakes.
There is so much wisdom brought in this show in so many different ways, and it's always unexpected, right? I didn't show up. I didn't know I'd get anything in the dating space or pancake space today. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So the question is, we are now 41 minutes in, and should you recreate Bad Boys right now, Marissa? Do you want to do it?
I don't think so. I there's something about the pancakes and the Zoom that like I can't find my motivation.
No. It's hard to channel Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. You know, when you've been pancakes and Zoom and yellow Crocs.
Right.
You've been a lot of spaces. We've hit Wilson. We hit Frida.
I know. No, I can't.
All right. So then I'm going to say, Josh Jacob, can you like bring this to a rousing conclusion, like something that's like.
I will try. Yeah. How do I follow pancakes? You know. Yeah. Here we go.
Come on, Josh.
My brother, my sister, God love you, God bless you. My brother, my sister, God love you, God bless you. May God hold us all in those almighty arms of love. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. Bring me your higher love. Bring me your higher love. Bring me your higher love. It's this higher love I've been thinking of. Yeah. Ooh, oh, yeah. My brother, my sister, God love you, God bless you. My brother, my sister, God love you, God bless you. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. Bring me your higher love. Bring me your higher love. Bring me your higher love. It's this higher love I've been thinking of. My brother, my sister, God love you, God bless you. My brother, my sister, God love you, God bless you.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's the way to bring us out, boy.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, as good as Marissa's Will Smith and JBJ's Martin Lawrence was going to be, that's even better. We'll leave it on a high note.
That's right.
Thanks so much, everybody out there. So good to be with you guys on the show, the folks on the screen, the folks on the pod, all the people out there. We're still praying for you. We're thinking about you. No matter how big Corona gets, no matter how crazy the world is, God's got you. And remember the big narrative, and find folks out there that are going to tell you what the real truth is. And God bless you until we're with you next. Keep fighting the good fight.